I'm John Taponga, president of ECONorthwest, and we're going to talk a little bit today about Oregon's challenges with its pension program, PERS. Two ways you can run into a problem with a pension system. One, you could design a very expensive program, or two, you could defer or delay contributions to a system regardless of its generosity. And Oregon's problem is really in the first order, designing an expensive program. So what's expensive? How would you judge that? Let's look a little bit at history and what we're trying to accomplish with the system. Back in 1979, the PERS board set a goal that post-retirement income for a career employee, when added with Social Security, which Oregon public employees are also eligible for, should replace about 75 to 85% of an employee's pre-retirement income. So 75 to 85% was the goal. But what went wrong? We had a program that called Money Match that created member accounts and guaranteed returns of anywhere between 5 and most recently 8% a year to those pieces. So regardless of what the stock market did, you got no less than that guaranteed return, and you can see that on the blue line. Unfortunately, the PERS board during the 80s and 90s was giving members returns in the stock market above 8%, and that's represented by the dotted lines, when the actual returns were above 8%. You can see those as green. So in essence, what was going on is as the stock market was doing well, the board was giving extra returns. They weren't putting money in reserve for those sharp downturns that you see in the early 2000s and in 2008. And so consequently, the member accounts did quite well. They all benefited from the very high returns of the 1990s, but didn't see any kind of drop in their account. In fact, they got 8% returns when everybody else was suffering the tech bubble and the housing bubble of 2008. The consequence of that was that those member accounts through Money Match became quite valuable, and the formula ultimately generated replacement rates that were far in excess of what the legislature and the PERS board ever intended. For those career employees who worked between 1970 and 2000 for 30 years, they actually got as much as 130% of their final salary. What that ultimately means is that expensive program has to be funded by someone, and that someone is going to be the public employers, the state itself, local cities, counties, school districts, etc. What this next chart shows is the charge that local employers will have to pay. The jump that we expect this coming July, which is about 7 percentage points, and then a projection into the future from actuaries of what those rates would be through 2029. And so you can see that the public employers have been used to paying somewhere between 15 and 20% of payroll to fund this system, along with member contributions. That is going to jump up to the high 20s this coming fall, and then continue to move into the 30s if no policy is changed. And it boils down to this at the Columbia River. Each Washington and Oregon both spend roughly the same amount per student. Oregon spends about $9,200 per student. Washington spends about $9,400 per student. But because of this extra pension charge, there's essentially $750 per student in Oregon that will be going toward paying pensions above and beyond the levels that are being charged in Washington State. $750 per student that will not deliver any additional class size reduction. It's not going to deliver arts or music or PE or extracurriculars or anything else that people might want. So it puts Oregon in a very tough position. Families and teachers and others will be looking at the two sides and saying, where do I have a better opportunity to learn? Where do I have an opportunity to apply my profession and teach in environments of reasonable class sizes and full school years, and with program and curriculum that's modern and up to date? Oregon, if it doesn't act, will run 20 years or more of muted public services. and will have a significant comparative disadvantage to Washington if the legislature and the PERS board don't act meaningfully in the next several months.